So welcome to Placerita Canyon Nature Center. This is, as you can see, Placerita Canyon History. This is a program of our Community Nature Education Series, which we do on the third Sunday of every month, usually. Today is the second Sunday, but we've already explained that. So what we're going to be talking about today is Placerita Canyon, primarily the Nature Center area, but I extended a little bit out and about around the canyon here. And the reason I got interested, by the way, I'm Ron Kraus. I'm the Vice President of the Placerita Canyon Nature Center Associates, and I've been here for 12 years. And I got interested in history because when I took docent training back in 2002, I thought it was a little bit disjointed. I just, it didn't seem like it was coming together. And at Placerita Canyon, what happens if you find a problem in some of the programs or the things that are going on around here, guess who gets the assignment to fix it? Okay, so I got involved with the history. I'm not a historian. I'm a retired city bureaucrat for the city of Los Angeles. And the history fascinated me because there's still some of the original settler family children that are still alive, the Walker family, and they come here occasionally and they bring us stuff and they tell stories about the old days here in the canyon. So that sort of piqued my interest in the history. And I took over the history class, and I took over docent training, and I've been involved ever since. Now, I know many of you've been involved in my docent training classes, and some of you haven't. I've sort of streamlined this down. I'm going to try to finish this up in 45 minutes to an hour. And then those who want to, who are not familiar with our Walker Cabin, our Oak of the Golden Tree, and some of our other historical sites here, we can take a little walk, and I can show you some of that stuff. So let's get started. This is the slide I like to start with. Can you read that? And this is attributed to Napoleon Bonaparte. I don't know if he actually said it, but the reason I like to put this up here is because you're going to hear a lot of different stories of local history. When I first started here, we had the Walker family. One faction of the Walker family came in and they told part of the story. Then we had another branch of the Walker family, and they told part of the story. And it all didn't agree with each other, So what I've tried to do with this presentation is I've tried to assimilate all the stories that I have heard over the years and sort of put them together into what I think makes sense. Now, we continue to get more information as time goes on, and there's a wonderful website, the Santa Clarita Valley Historical Society. They have a wonderful website, and they have a Facebook page, which I would like you all to like because they post a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of discussions about things, and we're always learning new stuff. So it's fluid. If I say something that you disagree with, let me know, and we'll check it out. I've changed a few things over the years that things have come to light, and so, again, it's fluid. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to spend maybe about 45 minutes with this PowerPoint presentation. And then for those who want to, we'll take a little walk around the park. I'm going to start at the end of the Tatavium era. We had a presentation just a few weeks ago, or a few months ago, from Lori Solis from COC, College of the Canyons, about the Tatavium. And I think that's on the SCV TV website. There's links to that if you want to see that. I can give you the links to that. But I'm going to not spend too much time with that. The Tatavium, that was our local Native American tribe. They were here for approximately 1,300 years. In 1769, and this is well documented, the Gaspar de Portola was on his expedition to establish missions and outposts in Alta, California. They actually have the exact date they came through the Santa Clarita Valley. Came through the San Fernando Pass in August, and Juan Crespi was their diarist, and he took excellent notes. So there's good documentation of this journey. And one of the comments in the notes were the Indians were good-natured and peaceful. And so what they did is they gathered them all up, since they were good-natured and peaceful, and they took them to the San Fernando Mission. And obviously I'm simplifying that, and if you want more information on that, you can dig into that. We had a docent here a few years ago who did a whole kind of presentation on what happened to the Indians, which wasn't pleasant, obviously. So the San Fernando Mission was founded in 1797. This is just some quick facts about the mission, and I'll go through these real quick. 1821, 1822, Mexico became an independent country. The missions were what they call secularized. That means turned into private property. and the last Padre, Father Ibarra, left in 1835. And the Mexican government then granted the San Fernando Mission and its grounds to Lieutenant Antonio del Valle, and there's another whole story about that. Rancho Camulos, some of you are involved with that, and we could talk more about that forever and ever and ever. But the San Fernando Mission, I like to point out some fun things about it. It is open for tours, and our docent organization has actually toured it, and we've really had a good time. Now, the docents at San Fernando Mission, they got fancier outfits than the docents at Placerita. We don't get these fancy hats, and we don't get these fancy ties, but we do get vests. And we had a big discussion about vests last night at our annual dinner. So the San Fernando Mission, what I thought was fascinating about it, there's a lot of celebrities that are buried in the graveyard there. And who's this guy? Chuck Connors. What's he playing there? What's that role? Rifleman. Sure, that's an easy one. They get harder, okay? There's another celebrity. Who's this guy? Yeah, that's an easy one. Bob Hope has a whole section, I don't know if you visited that, but lots of his family's buried there. It's a beautiful section, the cemetery. You know this guy? Richie Valens, yeah, La Bamba. Yeah, he's buried there. How about this guy? Yeah. Walter Brennan, yeah, the real McCoys. They're getting harder. How about this guy? What? William Bendix. And what was his famous role?
Life with Marty.
The Life with what?
Marty.
The Life of Riley. Life of Riley, yes. I remember that. I used to watch that coming home.
The Honeymooners.
The Honeymooners, I don't think so. This guy, you know this guy. Fred Mertz. William Frawley, yeah. There are some other celebrities buried there. They're a little bit harder to identify, so I just stuck with these guys, okay? One of our big historical monuments at Placerita Canyon is the Oak of the Golden Dream, California Historical Landmark number 168. And it was here in 1842 that Francisco Lopez made the discovery of the first documented discovery of gold in California. Now, it wasn't California in those days, 1842. California didn't become a state until what day, or what year? 1850. Remember that, there'll be a test. Anyway, we tell the story of the Oak of the Golden Dream, and most of you have heard it. And I'll just give you, the quick version. Francisco Lopez, he was a relative of the Del Valles, and he was supposedly up here looking for his lost cattle with a couple of friends, and he fell asleep. Oops, let's go back. He fell asleep under the tree, this tree, and when he did, he had this dream that he was going to be fabulously wealthy when he woke up, and he would be swimming in a pool of gold. And so he woke up, and there's two versions of the story. One version says, well, his wife told him to get some food for dinner, so he went over and picked up some wild onions, and on the roots of the wild onions were gold. The other story is that he was just hungry, so he walked over and picked some wild onions, and on the roots of the wild onion, he saw these little things that were flaky and looked shiny. So he took them down to Los Angeles shortly thereafter, and it checked out, it was gold. The gold rush, there's different figures on this. They've said the best sources that I have say 125 pounds of gold were taken from 1842 to 1848. The value, that changes depending on the value of gold, obviously. And then somebody argued with me, well, did you measure gold in ounces or troy ounces? Because gold is measured in troy ounces, which are different than regular ounces, So, anyway, so we had gold mining on and off in the canyon during the 1800s. And gold mining, we think, commercially stopped in the area in about the 1930s because of the gold mining was messing up the rivers, and the farmers were getting upset because all the debris and mud and silt and stuff was going down the river. So that's our sort of big claim to fame here at Placerita Canyon. Now, there's been disputes back and forth. Is this a real story? Was it made up by the Walker family that owned the property to promote their little camp they had here? Was gold discovered in other places in the Santa Clarita Valley before 1842? Yeah, yes to all of the above. But here's my answer to the critics. The state of California acknowledges that this is the site of California's first documented gold discovery. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So you can argue all you want, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's the state is saying that, and has the state ever lied to you? You know, never lied to me, so. Anyway, big ceremony here in 1930, March 9th, 1930. The owners of the property were the Walkers, and we're going to talk about the Walkers a little bit later. They had a ceremony to commemorate the gold discovery, and I love this quote from Mr. Adolfo Rivera, who was the head of the Native Sons of the Golden West. In fact, we had the Native Sons of the Golden West out here last year, what's left of them, and we gave them a tour and stuff like that. And I love this quote. This discovery must be presented in the textbooks of our schools, and we advise legitimate writers on California history to take heed, or they will be branded as falsifiers and concealers of the truth. And I'd love to use this quote when we have school teachers here, because I like to, you know, you like to poke them. Are you teaching this? Are you teaching this? You're teaching that, you know, Sutter's Mill, that's where the gold was discovered. You better teach this, you know. So you can have fun with this. I do it away from the kids, so I, you know, don't cause any problems. So Oak of the Golden Dream dedication, big ceremony. But these photos, they're sort of real high-resolution photos. And we got, you know, and I can't source all these photos. Some of them were given to us by the Walker family. Some of them were off the Santa Clarita Valley History Society webpage. But these were old glass photos, and some of them were digitized, I think, by one of the, George Starbuck, who was one of the Walker grandchildren. And you can blow them up on your computer. You know how you can just kind of keep blowing them up? And when you do that, you find interesting things. Like, look at, it's kind of hard to see, but you see it down here? Can you see that?
What is that, the dog?
No, it's a person who laid out on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know.
Sightseeing?
Did he, well, yeah. That's illegal, you know. You can't do that in the state of California. But, I don't know, maybe, you know, he had a nip, you know, a little, maybe he fell asleep. It was long speeches. But I've got another one of these later on in this presentation where it's kind of weird. It's like, why did these things show up? Anyway, Helen Walker, this is one of the daughters of the Walker family that owned the canyon prior to it becoming a state park. And I always like these pictures because she was dressed up. A lot of the pictures you see of the Walker children, they were sort of in their farm garb. You know, they were sort of simple people. And it was interesting to see some of them dressed up. So this is Irene Walker. This is the first child that the Walkers had with her sister Helen. And Lucy Ruiz, she was somehow involved in the Oak of the Golden Dream story. And I think as part of, there was a document that was put together that the relatives of Francisco Lopez attest that this is really the real place where the gold was discovered. And I think she's involved with that. We had the dedication of the park in 1959. These are some local dignitaries. I always have, this is a reenactment, the guy coming out of the Oak of the Golden Dream holding the onions. This picture took a lot of explanation. I had a docent a few years ago, and she just couldn't understand, well, why is that guy so short? You know. Well, he's kneeling on his knees, you know, but anyway. This is another little sidebar on the Oak of the Golden Dream story. This is a plaque. It says, the Golden Oak under this tree was first discovered in California by Don Francisco Lopez, March 9th, 1842. This plaque was over on the Disney Ranch. The Disney Ranch is the property across the street, for those of you not familiar with this area. And it's been a movie ranch for many, many years. And they had a plaque on a tree over there, and they claimed it was the Oak of the Golden Dream. So there was sort of this, like, well, who's got the real Oak of the Golden Dream? Well, recently, within the past few years, the Disney company did a big environmental impact report on their proposed expansion. You know, they're going to greatly expand, well, they're going to build sound stages on some of their property down by the 14 freeway. And as part of that process, they had to do an extensive environmental impact report. And they did a historical resources survey. And the bottom line is they gave up their claim on their Oak of the Golden Dream. They took the plaque off the tree, and they put it in their office. And the last time I was over there, this was even out of the office, so I don't even know where it is now. But again, now that claim is gone. The state of California says that we have the Oak of the Golden Dream. So you all believe that now?
Yes.
Okay. So if somebody says the Oak of the Golden Dream, now it's over on Disney property. No, they gave up the claim. I kept a copy of the EIR that Disney did. It's, I don't know, it takes up a gigabyte on my computer. It's several thousand pages long, but I can dig it out for you. So we have the Oak of the Golden Dream. Real quick, the gold mining that was done at Placerita Canyon is what we call placer mining. And placer mining, you've probably all studied or seen this in school or seen, pictures, movies about it. It's panning for gold. You scoop up the sand and the gravel and you wash it with water, and the gold drops out to the bottom, and you take the gold and you're rich. Much harder than that. But we had, this is the technical definition of a placer, an alluvial, marine, or glacial deposit containing particles of valuable minerals, especially gold. The placer here was a little one, Placerita, you put ITA on something on the back of a Spanish word, you get little. So we had different gold mining techniques here. The pan is the simplest one. You pan for gold. To get a little more sophisticated, you have a cradle and rocker. That's this thing down here. You can process more material through that. And we actually have one here. And occasionally, when we have our open house and other special events, we do take this thing out and play with it. And then there's other more sophisticated device, sluice box. A coyote hole is sort of a dry diggings where you go down in, dig up the stuff and bring it up to the top. So all of these techniques require a lot of water. And Placerita, back in those days, was like it is in these days. There's not too much water. In the spring and late spring into early summer, on a good year, we'll have water. But the stream dries up in the summer, so there's no water until the following winter. So it's things that require water are not very productive in Placerita Canyon. Placer mining can be very destructive to the environment, so it's prohibited in Placerita Canyon. And in fact, in rainy years, I've had to stop people. People, they bring their shovels and their pans and their picks and their metal detectors, and they make a mess. And it's not good for we have a kind of a delicate stream environment here, and we don't like people doing that, so it's illegal. We did have some hard rock mining. That's where you actually kind of blast into the side of the hills and try to follow the gold mine or the gold veins. That's more sophisticated, and we have some evidence that was done here at Placerita. Real gold versus fool gold, we won't talk about. This is interesting, I thought, was this traditional Mexican equipment. Before we became a state, a lot of the miners came up from Sonora, Mexico, and again, because there wasn't a lot of water, what they do is they just take the sand and gravel and they put it in this kind of a bowl situation here, and kind of throw it up in the air and blow through it to get the dirt and the gravel and stuff out. And then supposedly the gold is heavier and it would sink to the bottom. And that had to be very intensive. Can you imagine, spending 8-12 hours a day blowing through gravel and sand? This is a sluice operation that we have a picture of. This was around 1890, maybe around the turn of the century. I don't have an exact date on this. But the gentleman here with the big beard, that's Cap Harmon. He was supposedly a sea captain. He was down in San Pedro, and he got tired of being a boat captain, so he wandered up here and decided to be a gold miner. And he's got a friend here that's helping him, and this is a sluice box. And I can actually show you on the canyon trail where this area is. You can actually match up these ridge lines, and there still is tailings and rocks and stuff like that up there. All the sluice box, all the equipment's gone. That's not around anymore. But the rock is still there. And Cap is holding a pitchfork here. And one of the Walker kids, again, George Starbuck, Walker grandchildren, he says he has this pitchfork. He moved up to Oregon, and he has this pitchfork, he tells us. And Cap is supposedly buried in Placerita Canyon under a rock. And this is the rock that I was shown when I took docent training 12 years ago. And it's sort of hidden now. We don't show this to a lot of people because I don't want people digging around up there thinking they're going to find Cap's bones or gold or whatever. But this is a kind of rock we have in Placerita Canyon called fancy rock. This is another aspect of the gold mining.
How big is that rock?
That rock? It's about a half of a refrigerator.
Huge.
It's not super duper huge, but it's about, like take a refrigerator and cut it in half, probably about like that. This is called the Miners Hotel. Apparently, the people that owned the property prior to the Walkers, they would lease out the property, or you could come up here and pan for gold, mine for gold. And they had this kind of kind of a tent cabin, maybe a little bit of a structure set up where you could, rent out during the night. You could stay there and then go out during the day and hunt for gold. This is another one of these pictures that I just had to play with. If you start blowing it up and blowing it up and blowing it up, you get to this part right here. Now look at this young woman. She's got her finger up her nose, and I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Somebody should have told her, smile, don't be picking your nose. There's old Cap Harmon with his beard. And anyway, you got to be careful when people take pictures. Hard rock mining, we talked a little bit about this. This mine has been covered up. You can't get there anymore, but when it was open years ago, I did go back in there a little bit. I went back maybe about 5 or 10 feet and got my feet wet. It was used, I don't know if they ever discovered any gold in there. The walkers, we think, used it as a water supply. There's pipes that come down from this on the waterfall trail, and we think it brought water down to their cabin that's down on what we call their summer cabin. This is the entrance to that mine shaft circa 1900. This is just some silly stuff, but I got to show it because I see one of my cohorts in crime is here. This was some of the pictures we got from the Starbucks. This one was interesting. It was called The Hole in the Bluff Where the Gold Was Hid. The story is there was a hole up here, and when at the end of the day when they'd be mining, they'd take all the gold and they'd shove it up in this hole up here, and this was kind of off the beaten path, and that way the robbers and stuff that would come through, they really wouldn't know where the gold was, and they could come back and get it. So anyway, we tried to find this thing. I tried to, again, match up old photos to what's existing, and there's a road cut, about 1.5 miles up the road here, and where this hole is still, existent, and it sort of matches up pretty good with the configuration here. And we sent one of our more adventuresome docents, we sent her up there to look at it. All she found was a hive of bees, and so she, so she had to scramble back down. And this is one of my other cohorts in crime, and I see she's here today, but she's not disguised. So anyway, you got to be careful when you're looking for these things. There can be dangerous characters in these mountains. So we're moving on from the gold discovery in 1840s, moving on to the second half of the 19th century, and homesteaders started moving into the area. This was the Renier family, and they had vineyards over in Sand Canyon. And this actually, except for the new houses in here, and the vineyards are gone, this ridge line is still there. In fact, we just recently walked along here. You can walk along this ridge line, and it'll actually take you over to something called Horse Peak, which is the highest peak in the city of Santa Clarita. And I think it's like 2,900 feet. And people were arguing with me, Ron, come on, Towsley Peak is what, 3,500 feet, something like that? So this wimpy little Horse Peak, that's not the highest peak. Well, it is, but you have to listen to the definition. The city of Santa Clarita, okay? Towsley is not in the city of Santa Clarita. It's in unincorporated county territory. But it's a nice walk along that ridge. And so the Del Valles, who owned all of this property up here, they fell on hard times. There was droughts, yes, in the 1850s, 1860s. Henry Newhall eventually ended up with a lot of the property up here. Mining continued. In 1888, a Los Angeles group paid $15,000 for Placerita land. Attempts at hydraulic mining failed due to lack of water. Duh. Homesteaders moved into the area. Oil wells were starting to be developed in the 1870s. We do have a unique mineral resource here called white oil, and it is still leaks or still bubbles up to the surface out on the canyon trail, and many of you have probably been up there, you've seen that. The big oil production in California was around the turn of the 1800s to the 1900s. White oil, we call it white oil because it's not like, goopy black crude oil. We think it's filtered up through the different sediments and it sort of becomes pure. And it's not really white. It sort of looks like lemonade to me. Production was never much, 2.5 barrels a day. One of the stories they tell, you could use it directly in your old cars, like Model Ts. Some of the old timers would actually pour it directly out of the ground. Well, not out of the ground. They separated the water from it into their Model Ts. Also, Mr. Walker sold it as sort of a liniment or a pain cure thing. You could rub it on yourself and it would cure your arthritis, I guess. And the oil production actually was legally on the books until 1857, until they were finally abandoned. They tried in 1984, there's a good story, kind of one of the Placerita legend stories here, that another oil company tried to, well, they actually did. They bulldozed a road through the park to get back up to these oil fields. And one of the park superintendent at the time had to stop them at gunpoint because they weren't going to stop. There was a big confrontation. No shots were fired, though. White gold, white oil, that's what we were talking about. This is Herman Mosher, and I don't know who this is. This is their oil well that's up near Walker Ranch. Around 1900. The New Century oil well was the start of the new century, so they called it the New Century oil well. Again, the white oil, we've talked about that. And it still bubbles up from the ground near Walker Ranch. Here's another old picture of that oil well. This was that New Century oil well, a gusher. They actually had a gusher, and these pictures were found recently by oil historian in the Santa Clarita Valley called Stan Walker. And he's got a great website on Ellesmere Canyon. He's got all the links to oil history. And you can see sort of in the background here, kind of a railway sort of a thing going up the canyon here. Here it is here. And there's still evidence of that rails up in the Walker Ranch area. And we think it was kind of a little mini railway to bring tools and equipment up to the top of the mountain where they had some wells. This is what the oil seep used to look like. It would just seep across the trail on Walker Ranch or the Canyon Trail. But recently, over the past few months, the county did a great job. They kind of cleaned up the area. They put a little bridge over the oil seep, and they put this nice interpretive sign. So this is on the Canyon Trail. Hey, guys, anybody familiar with this? Yeah, you've been up there? Yeah. Okay, and it's neat, and it hasn't been vandalized. I really like it. There's no graffiti on it, so it kind of tells the oil story. Yeah.
Where does the seepage go?
It kind of goes down this little creek, and it just kind of goes into the ground, you know. Yeah, it's mostly water. You know, we say it's oil. It's probably about 99% water and about 1% oil. It's just on the skim, you know, on the top. You can smell it. Yeah, it's got I don't like the smell. I think it's not. Yeah. Yeah, sort of like that. Yeah. Not very pleasant. But there still is some debris up there on that canyon that goes up from that oil seep. This is some old can. This is that rail I was telling you about for that railroad. And there's all kinds of cables up there you can look at. This is a capped well that's up there. There's several of these. And then this is the oil field that just over the past couple of years, the owner of this property decided to clear this off. We think he was trying to sell the property. When you go up in this area, it's, you know, when you think Placerita Canyon, it's all park, you know, all the way up to the top of the mountain. Well, it's not. There's a huge inholding. It's like 255 acres that a private property owner has. And the county tried to buy it a few years ago. The negotiations fell through. But in any case, his crews were up there clearing this area, and there's several old capped-off oil wells up there you can see. I don't think he sold the property, but if you go up there, you'll see signs that'll say no trespassing, and so you're not supposed to go into that area because that is private property. This is one of those capped oil wells. This is some oil equipment that we kept around in our local area here, and if you take the trail hike with me afterwards, we'll see this. Just to kind of remind ourselves that oil was produced here back in the, 100 years ago. This is a pump that was used to pump the oil from the wellhead to the refinery. This is a production packer, which is sort of like a pressure regulating device. We have a rolling rock surface drill bit. This was the device that Howard Hughes' father made millions and millions of dollars with, because this is the thing they put on the bottom of the pipes that go down into the ground to get the oil. And this is some other oil equipment that we have hanging over there. I put some pictures in of Mentryville. If you really want to know the story of Santa Clarita oil, Mentryville is a good place to go. That's where they really did have a lot of oil production. And this was Docent a few years ago at the big house they have over there. So has anybody taken the Mentryville tours? Yeah, and that's a good thing to do. It's a fun thing. The other area of oil in the Santa Clarita Valley that sort of relates to us a bit is this Placerita Canyon oil field. This is over where Highway 14 meets Sierra Highway meets Placerita Canyon Road at Highway 14. And there's still a lot of production going over there. It's called Confusion Hill because there was a gentleman, Milford Yant. He was sort of a scammer, and back in the 1930s, he was selling kind of tiny patches of leases for oil production over in this area. And you know, nobody ever found oil in the 1930s. It was a scam. He took the money, he ended up in jail. And we thought that was going to be the end of the story. Well, it wasn't. He got out of jail I think in the 1940s, and they did discover oil. And people that had these old oil leases that they thought were worthless all of a sudden were valued, but they weren't registered and recorded that well. So there was a lot of running around. There was a lot of confusion as to who really did own the oil rights. And it was eventually sorted out through the courts and things of that sort. Berry Petroleum Company ended up with the property. They've been sold to, I think it's Linco Petroleum. So, and there's still a lot of petroleum production that goes on over there. And has anybody ever been to there's a new open space over there. I can't remember that canyon. Quigley, yeah, Quigley Canyon. And you can walk into the oil fields there. They really don't chase you out. You can walk around. What's that?
There's nobody there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a popular area for horses, and you can walk around through there, and you can see a lot of these things that go up and down to pump the oil up out of the ground. So Quigley Canyon, yeah. Cattle ranching, that was a big commercial activity in Placerita Canyon. This was the Mitchell Ranch, which was adjacent to Placerita Canyon, up near Walker Ranch. And there's this old corral thing was there for many, many years, but in 2006 there was a fire, and it burned most of it down. So now there's still remnants, but it's fun to walk in this area. You can find remnants of old cattle ranching stuff. There's water troughs and some of these poles left. There's an old pickup truck over here in old fencing. So there's still some remnants of what the cattle ranching activity that was here. Other economic activities in the Placerita Canyon area, the Golden Oak Ranch, we talked about the Disney Ranch. This was there for many, many years. This was a Western town set that was constructed, I think, for Roots 2. Everybody remember Roots 1, the famous Alex Haley miniseries of the 70s. Roots 2, I don't know. You'd have to look around for that one. But that set was there for many years. And the Walt Disney Company ended up leased this property. This was before Disney owned it, it was owned by other individuals who filmed movies there. But in the 1950s, Spin and Marty, that was a section on the old Mickey Mouse Club. And anybody remember Spin and Marty? Yeah. Yeah. That was fun. Yeah, coming home from school, we'd watch that, and it was a serial. Every day you'd see, or twice a week you'd see a
Marty
section.
was the rich kid, Spin
Was the poor one?
The do everything.
Okay. But it was good. It was good. But anyway, Walt Disney fell in love with the property, ended up eventually buying it, and been many, many films since then filmed there. This is where that Western set was. It was replaced by this business district. I saw them building this. I used to hike up on the what we call the Viper Trail, and this is a zoomed-in shot, obviously. And when I saw them building this, I didn't know it was a set, and I thought it was a real office thing going up. But then I started noticing, they'd have to have really skinny people working in these things because the buildings are about 10 feet wide, So anyway, it's a set, and I've been over there, and we've taken a little tour over there. And it's interesting how they can dress these sets to look like the 20s or the 30s or the 70s or the 80s, just depending on what they do. This is another piece of the Disney property. This is a quiet residential street. And it looks like, just any other neighborhood that you'd find around here. But you go inside the houses, and they're just these steel shells. And they made them, Disney, to their credit, they really did a lot of work on these things. They could have just did, cheap wooden construction, but they're concerned about fires, because fires do burn through this canyon. And so they did this nice sort of steel construction, so these are sort of fire resistant. This is that expansion project I was telling you about. This is the 14 freeway, and they're going to have these sound stages down there where you get off the freeway. I talked to the manager of the Disney Ranch, so we had a tour over there a couple of months ago, and it's, the construction is imminent, but not. It sounds like it still may, be a year and a half off before they actually start, breaking ground, but, who knows. We were concerned because we have our open house. We use this property now as a parking area, and we shuttle people from there over to here for our open house. And, our open house is coming up in May of 2015. And so we were kind of checking, should we be looking for additional parking or other parking? And we were assured that we'll be able to have that parking next year, but we will see. This is an old sign that's at the park boundary. I always love this one. The sycamore tree sort of grown into it. But tells you shouldn't be trespassing. I always take the kids over there on our school tours. And can you read that sign for me? And yeah, no trespassing, $500 fine or Simont, they read it literally. The Heritage Trail, this is where we talk about Placerita's history, the Heritage Trail. And it's a short little trail. It's only, it's less than a quarter of a mile. And you can get a pretty good feel for everything that went on here at Placerita. One of the first things on the trail is what we call the Lion's Oak. It's a stump, and part of it was, a chunk of it's been burned out, and we had the big fire in 2004. But it was a historic oak that was, well, historic. It's historic now. But it was on Lyons Avenue back in the 1970s. This was a big controversy. The county had to widen the road, or wanted to widen the road, and so they cut down this tree. The story says in the middle of the night, it's when the protesters went home, and we ended up, our docents brought a chunk of it over here, and we use it to show the kids how to count tree rings, and how old trees, how you can count tree rings, determine the age of trees. So we'll move on to the Walkers. The Walker family. They were here, they were the owners of the property before it became a state park, and they were here for about 50 years, from the early 1900s till 1959. And big family, 7 boys, 5 girls, that was 12 kids. And this picture has been sort of photoshopped. There was a person in here whose picture was taken out of there, and I recently got a copy of them with the picture back in there. But their first house, the Walkers, when they first moved into Placerita Canyon, they called it the Homestead House, and that was about 1909, we think. And that's up the canyon. It's about 2 miles up the canyon from here. And many of you may have seen, if you're going up Placerita Canyon or east on Placerita Canyon, and you look off towards the left, you'll see these stone pillars. These stone pillars are still there. This is Mrs. Walker Hortense and her first child, Irene. These are some other pictures that we got just recently. This is Mr. Walker's old, they say it's a Model T. I don't know, he had a chicken house here. This was his, the main house. This is another view of the house. This is the main house. This is the kind of the outbuilding. This was interesting. This says Liberty on here, so I don't know if there was a Liberty car back in the day, but it was in a collection of pictures. One of the Walker grandkids is an artist, and she did this sort of nice sort of fancy, I don't know what you call it, a artist rendering of what the Walker homestead area might have looked like back in the early 1900s. So she got the crops growing here and the chickens and, the Mrs. and Mrs. Walker and her children up there. This is what it looks like today. Well, actually in 2008, but it still looks like it. We take the docents up there for our docent training. We have a little walk around the area. The Walker's second house is what we call the Walker cabin, and that's the little house you passed as you came in here. Yeah, it's this little red house. It's been modified slightly since the days the Walker lived here, but we think they lived here about 1918 to 1925. I used to say 1920 to 1930, but yeah, so we had some recent information that looks like they really kind of moved out in the mid-1920s. This was also called the summer cabin, the winter cabin. I always get that confused because they'd stay here in the winter. In the summer, they had another cabin up the canyon, and because of the water in the winter coming down the stream, they couldn't get up to the summer cabins. They'd stay down here in the winter. This is what the house looked like back in the day. The roof, the porch roof was not there. There were some rooms in the back. We think those were bedrooms that the kids stayed in. Nobody seems to know who this guy is, so if anybody wants to do some research. But this is another picture of the Walker clan. These are some of the Walker children in the late 1920s. Francis, Irene, Helen, come on Melba, Hortense, let's see, Edward, and who else? Charles. Melba Walker, she's still alive. She's 95 or 96 years old. Just recently, she was moved into a rest home up in Bakersfield. She lived on, I think it was at 8th Street, 8th Street in Newhall. In fact, Evelyn used to see her walking up the street. Didn't you have Evelyn? Yeah.
Even recently.
Even just recently. But I guess finally she got to the point where she couldn't take care of herself. Now, I talked to one of the Walker grandchildren, and they said that she's actually sort of happy up at the rest home in Bakersfield. She thinks it's a resort. And yeah, they said she's happy. She thinks she's on vacation. So so if any of you have any elderly parents, maybe you want to talk to them about going to a resort. Francis There's a really kind of a tragic story, and we'll talk about that later. Hortense, her name was also same as her mom's, but her nickname was Mickey, and she was like one of the original Rosie the Riveters, you know, World War II. She worked at Lockheed and had a good career there. Again, Melba, she got several names. Melba Walker Starbuck Fisher, she was married a couple of times. This is sort of what she looks like now, but she's still, the last time I talked to her, she was really sharp, very hard of hearing. You know, so I had to yell at her. And this picture surfaced just recently. I threw this in. This is a Caribbean cruise she was on in 1982. And then, what's that?
She curled her hair.
She curled, yeah, most of the time she has this kind of page voice look, most of the pictures you see. Richard Walker, that's the other Walker child that's still alive. He's 86, and he lives up near the Sacramento area. Many movies were filmed at the Walker cabin, a lot of what they call B-westerns in the 1930s, 1940s, Republic films, monogram films. This was the Walkers' third home. This is the summer cabin, and they lived there permanently, we think, from the 1920s into the 1950s, and it was kind of two big rooms, and then there were some outbuildings for bedrooms for the kids. And this is what it looked like in the day. It's gone now. The state tore it down. It was becoming an attractive nuisance. Frank Walker was a kind of an inventor. He made money doing very different things. He was an entrepreneur. This is his oil, gas, water separator. Remember we saw that picture of the oil bubbling out of the ground? Okay, it would bubble up into this machine where they'd separate out the water and then the oil, and then natural gas would flow out the top. And the natural gas would be used in his house, that house I just showed you. And they always had lamps going because he didn't have a way of shutting off the gas, apparently. He just let the gas burn all the time. So they had gas lights all the time going on in there. This is the site of that house today. And we know it was there because this tree, they call it the slingshot tree, some of the Walker kids, because it looks like a slingshot. And if you poke around in the dirt, you can find different things. There's part of the plumbing there. There's an old sink or part of an old sink that we think might have been part of the original house there. And this is pictures of that. Then the Walkers had started to build a fourth house, and many of you have been on the Walker Ranch. You've seen this. It's this fireplace. And that's about as far as they got. He had the fireplace and the foundation, and again, two stories. One story is that his wife had died, this is in the early 1930s, and he just kind of lost his interest in building this house. Another story heard from one of the Walker grandchildren is that, well, he hurt his back when he was building this thing, and he just didn't want to continue with it. In any case, the fireplace is still there, and it has this what we call Placerita Canyon fancy rock. It's a type of schist that's very intricately patterned, and it's really pretty. This is the foundation of the house. And the Walkers had many money-making activities: ranching, farming, mining, dude ranching, selling oak firewood, and other activities. This is a flyer from their dude ranch they had up here, where you could go and you could have barbecue dinners, and they had house cabins and stuff like that, gold panning. We actually have a picture. We have a sign, an old metal sign that he used to put up on the road, and we have it here. We've got to get it restored. This is interesting, these little things that come to light. Somebody brought up some bison, I guess, during the 1930s, and they were roaming around here, and this is a picture of one of them. They're not here now, so, don't go out looking for buffalo. Here's some Walker family photos that, again, have come to light recently. These are these kind of colorized photos from the, 30s, 40s, but they sort of touch up people, Nowadays we have Photoshop. I don't know what process they used in those days. But there's Melba, Helen and Francis, Irene. This is a funny story we tell at Placerita. The Walkers told this. We have this on one of the videotape interviews with Melba. Tiburcio Vasquez, the famous bandit that Vasquez Rocks is named after, and famous guy. Supposedly in 1873, he was coming through here and he stopped at the Walkers' house, and he demanded food and a bed, and they gave it to him, and we're not going to mess with this guy. And the next morning he was gone, but he left a $5 gold piece on the table. So he paid for what he had taken, and so they had fond memories of him. Now the dates don't particularly match up with this, he was hanged in 1875, but it's a story they tell, so we're going to pass it along. This is the scandal I was talking about. This just recently came to light, okay? And this tabloid, look at this thing. This is 1935, You think tabloids are just something recent? And this is actually, the Walker family doesn't talk about this a whole lot because this is really a tragedy, and it's too bad that this happened. But Frances Walker was one of the Walker's daughters, and she was 20 years old, and she was sort of a housekeeper babysitter for a deputy sheriff in town here. And apparently she was involved in a relationship with the sheriff, Mr. Carter, and something went wrong. Mrs. Carter, the sheriff's wife, supposedly got in an argument or something with Frances at the sheriff's house, and the story is that they were wrestling for the gun. The gun went off and it killed Frances, and it went to trial. Mrs. Carter was found, she was free because of temporary insanity, but then because she was no longer insane, they let her go. Well, the judge in the case thought this was sort of a travesty that, she got off with murder, and he tried Archie Carter, who was the sheriff, and he found Archie Carter guilty of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Now, Frances was 20 years old at the time, but the age of majority was 21 in those days. Okay, so yeah, that's the same thing. I had to read the notes. Thankfully, on the Santa Clarita Valley Historical website, Mr. Leon Warden has done a nice analysis of this and put a footnote in there so you can read this, okay? Anyway, the judge in the case was a guy named Fletcher Bowron, who was a mayor of Los Angeles back in, I think it was in the 40s. I think he sort of cleaned up after the corrupt Shaw administration. But if you go to downtown Los Angeles, there is Fletcher Bowron Square named after this guy. Anyway, the sheriff was convicted of contributing to the delinquency of a minor, since he had an affair with a minor, and he was granted bail and immediately skipped town. And so this was a real tragedy. Frances was killed. The killer, Mrs. Carter, was let off, and Mr. Carter, who was convicted of this delinquency charge, anyway, a few months later, they were found living in Los Angeles, a happy life, and that's where the story ends. So I don't know what happened after that. But the Walker family, we had one of our docents a few years ago, Lee Nikolai Moon, did a story about, or did a long report about the Walker family, and she mentioned this incident, and it's still kind of sensitive, so we think that, it was kind of the Walkers were poor. They couldn't really afford good lawyers. The sheriff's deputy, the deputy sheriff and his wife, there was a defense fund taken up from them in the town, so, who knows. The Walkers sold the property to the state. The first parcel was in 1949, and that's the area where we're sitting, and that was about 40 acres. They sold that property. Mr. Walker then moved up the canyon to what we call Walker Ranch, and he sold that in 1959. And so it was in two chunks. The entire park's about 350 acres. The Walker legacy, what we like to talk about the Walkers, we really do thank them for keeping the property in its sort of pristine, natural state. I mean, they could have sold it. This could have been like any other canyon, in Santa Clarita, Bouquet Canyon, Pico Canyon, where there's houses and condos and Walmarts, but it's not. So we really do thank the Walker family for keeping the property in its natural state. And we also thank them for them coming back and sharing with them, because a lot of the grandchildren bring back pictures, documents, mementos, and so we're starting to get a little, storehouse of Walker family stuff, and it's really interesting. The Walker family, several of the boys were soldiers in World War II. One of them was involved in the Battle of the Bulge. We have a discharge letter signed by Harry Truman, President Harry Truman, discharging one of the Walker children. It's not, it looks like an original signature, but they had something called auto pen in the day, which they signed documents. So I don't think Harry Truman signed all the discharge letters for all the millions of soldiers that were in World War II. Placerita and the movies. Again, we talk about the movie history here. Lots of movies, mostly, as I say, B-westerns in the 30s and the 40s. William S. Hart, you know about William S. Hart? Yeah, okay. Walker kids were some of the extras in some of the movies. The Golden Oak Ranch, kind of talked about that. I have my favorite Placerita movies. This is one of my favorite. If you want to watch this, we have it in our library. I can check it out to you. This is called The Hard Hombre, and it starred Hoot Gibson, who was a big cowboy star back in the 30s. And it's, a really not a bad movie. I think several of you have watched it. And it's got a good story. It's sort of compelling. You can, listen to the dialogue. It's not just, they run around shooting at each other. It's got a good story. I like it. And there's lots of action around the Walker cabin. They do have a shootout, but it's kind of a funny shootout. Nobody gets killed. And but lots and lots of good action around the Walker cabin. It's got a fairly interesting plot, and you have to really think about it, what's going on. Was filmed in 1931, and my favorite, I kept this in, female lead. She's a doll. She was really one of the hot stars of the era. Okay, there she is, Lena Basquette. She lived a long, long life. She had an animal rescue facility, and I think she lived up into the 1990s. So she was quite the character. She was like, I don't know, not the Paris Hilton, but kind of a wild and crazy person of the 1930s. This is the other, this one I'm embarrassed to show you, but Rest Stop. I don't know if you guys see, there's part 1 and part 2. Why they ever made part 2, I'll never know. Part 1 was bad enough. Lots of shots around Placerita. The plot is totally ridiculous. The Hard Hombre has a much better plot. It's unbelievable, this plot. You do not know what's going on. They never tell you what's going on. But again, it's shot around Placerita. The part that gets me, the ridiculousness of this movie, is there's a girl and her boyfriend, and their car breaks down at, this is a rest stop. Placerita is not a natural area, it's a rest stop in the movie. And the boyfriend disappears, and she's all panicked and stuff like that. Oh no, what happened to my boyfriend? So it's getting dark. She doesn't know what to do. So she breaks into the ranger station that's here, and there's a bottle of whiskey. She immediately drinks the whiskey. You know, it's getting dark, your boyfriend's disappeared, you don't know what's going on, so you get drunk. I mean, not my first choice. It's violent and gory. If you don't like that, don't watch it. But you know, you can get it in a $4 bin down at Walmart. Or Netflix probably has it. Recent history. The volunteer organization that I'm a member of, and a lot of our docents here, is the Placerita Canyon Nature Center Associates. The predecessor agency was the American Association of University Women. It started in the 1960s. Our Nature Center, the building that you're sitting in now, was built in 1971, and was refurbished through 2007, 2009. And then we have a museum refurbishment project that's going on right now. New exhibits are being fabricated for our museum, which is on the other side of this wall. And we are told they're going to be totally installed and ready and opened by Christmas of this year. And it's going to be really neat. I think you're going to like it. A lot of time and effort and hard work went into this thing. Our refurbishment project, this is some of the pictures I took during those years when they were refurbishing the building. We had this old wooden bridge. We got this new nice bridge. This is what our classroom used to look like. We had all this funky wood paneling circa the 1970s. We still have the stage. The new reconstructed interior here, this is our museum, and there's several themed areas. We call it On the Banks of the Stream. It'll discuss the riparian habitat. This is the chaparral area. Life Among the Oaks. It'll discuss the oak trees and their significance. And then we have a Bringing It On Home. It kind of ties everything together. Our classroom is going to be the room you're sitting in now is going to be redeveloped or remodeled. We're going to have what we call discovery boxes over here, where you can pull out stuff, and we'll have like feathers and rocks and things to help us do a nature interpretation. And we're going to have a big, this is some of the artist renderings of what the new museum is going to look like. We'll have some exhibits on the Tataviam Indians. This is the Chaparral exhibit. This is what this Discovery Lab is going to look like over here. And then this is something we're proud of. This is the wall over here where we've got some taxidermy. This is going to be totally redone. And we're going to have sort of a day and a night thing. We're going to start in the daytime and kind of work your way through the afternoon and end up into the nocturnal animals. So you have diurnal animals here, and you'll work your way across to the nocturnal animals. And we're going to use a lot of our existing taxidermy, because our taxidermy now, it's kind of scattered around here. There's some here, some there, there's some in the other room. So we're going to try to pull it all together with this. What are we doing here? The PCNCA, that's the organization that I belong to. We do school tours primarily for nature school tours for kids, elementary school kids. And we do outreaches if the schools can't afford to bring their students here with buses and things of that sort. We can take our program to the schools. We do some special events each year, and that's the end. So and good, I finished up right on time. What we'll do now is I'll take some questions. If you guys ain't got any questions, and then for those who want to, we can take another, maybe half an hour and go down and see some of these things that I showed you in the slideshow. So any questions? No questions. Nobody's going to challenge me on anything?
Where is the Quickly Canyon?
Quigley Canyon, that's kind of on the other side of the 14 freeway. So you just go down Placerita Canyon Road, and you'll have to look. It's a little trick to get in there.
If you go to Master's College, you go all the way down where the baseball field is. If you look on SantaClaritaHeights.com, just look at it, tells you, but the trailhead, the official trailhead is down past Master's College.
You have to go around. You can't go.
Right.
You have to go around.
You have to-
13th Street.
You have to go around Ruth Ann. You can find it. Yeah, Fred, you had a question?
Leon Warden has got some other stuff about like how ordinance rank up together and their mining claims.
Yeah, I shortened this today, so we could do the extended version, but yeah, I shortened this today. I took out stuff that we have to cover 1,000 years of history in an hour, so. Okay, well, again, our park is open every day of the year from 9 to 5. It was closed on Mondays, but we understand as of July 1st, the county's going to restore Monday, so we're going to be open up 7 days a week. We are closed Christmas Day. We have programs every Saturday. We have a family nature walk at 11, and we have an animal show at 1. And that's every Saturday. And we have some other programs, wildflower walks, we have bird hikes. We do these programs on Sundays now. And so we have a lot of things, and we're building up. And once we get our new museum constructed, we're going to have some museum docents in there that'll help with the interpretation of the park.
We used to have a paper that printed paper that said when everything is going to happen, program.
Well, we do have, if you want that, I suggest...
And they had the moonwalks sometimes.
We don't have the moonwalks. We're going to try to restore those. But if you go into our office there, we have what we call our Rattler. That's our newsletter.
Yeah.
And we have copies of that. You feel free to pick up a copy of that. And that has that schedule in there. Okay.
We're going to redo the courtyard also?
Yeah, I didn't touch on that, but we are going to redo the courtyard also. There's going to be some cages out there, a free flight cage for some of our animals. The other area, we have an observation deck will be for birding. And there's some other improvements out there. So yeah, that's actually going forth faster than this project. I think that will probably be done, we understand, before Thanksgiving, yeah. That's being done under a different contract.
Can you clarify for me the relationship state and county, and that's changed over time?
Yeah, that's confusing. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Because you look at some old maps, they'll say this is Placerita Canyon State and County Park. Well, the property itself is owned by the State of California Department of Parks. But the State of California has leased it to LA County on a long-term lease for operation. So the County of Los Angeles Department of Parks and Recreation actually operates the property. The employees you see here, those are county employees. But the underlying fee title to the property is State of California. So good, yeah, that does confuse some people.
How come there is no fee in this park?
Well, we're fortunate, huh? The county Parks Department, they have, a few years ago during some budget battles, there was a fee. They were charging for parking, yeah. But, the budget has allowed them now to operate the facility without charging fees, and we're very thankful for that, We have the best bargain in town here. Yeah, free parking, free admission, Yeah, so we're fortunate. In fact, all of the county natures, and the county has, I think, 8 or 9 nature centers, or natural areas, and they're all open free of charge. Vasquez Rocks, that's one of our sister parks, Devil's Punch Bowl in this area, if you've ever been up there. Eaton Canyon, San Dimas, all of the county natural areas are open free of charge. So we thank the County of Los Angeles for that.
Good job.